Hello and welcome to Chris & Co, the show looking at what affects business in Kent, with me, Chris Price. Joining me this week are Simon Warne, a tax partner at accountancy firm Crowe Clark Whitehill, and Andrew Mapstone, an international trade advisor at the Department for International Trade. We'll be discussing the problems and benefits caused by the fluctuating value of the pound, which has come into much sharper focus since the vote to leave the European Union last year. One of its major impacts has been on exporters, many of which have been given a boost by the pound's weakness since the referendum. Our reporter Josie Hannett went along to a medical device manufacturer in Kent to find out how its foreign sales are faring.
Bedfont Scientific is a family-run Kent business which specialises in breath analysis monitors, including devices such as smoke-alyzers. 80% of its products are destined for foreign shores, but with Britain voting to leave the European Union, how has this decision affected the company's exports?
Brexit was quite a big change for us. We initially saw increase in sales. The reason being is that our products actually became a bit cheaper because of the pound went down. We also manufacture a lot of our devices overseas, so what we actually found is that the manufacturing became a bit more expensive, products became cheaper. What that actually has impacted on us now is that we're looking to move the manufacturing back to the UK, so again that's great for the UK economy.
Well, this smoke-alyzer is one of the main products which is exported across the world by Bedfont. They're a company based here in Harrietshire. Now, the NHS and other smoking clinics across the country and the world use this product, and it's hoped that with business growing, more of these will be sold on and exported in the future. Hundreds of boxes fill the delivery room, ready to be shipped across the world. Bedfont has around 100 distributors who work with more than 80 different countries.
We actually have a lot of troubles exporting into places like Latin America and the Middle East. So we're hoping that actually becoming outside the European Union is going to make those markets easier for us to access. And we hope to eventually see 5% of our business here in the UK and 95% of it overseas. We want to open those markets a bit better and increase our distributors.
With the goal for more foreign trading firmly set for this company, they could be a breath of fresh air for Kent's economy. Josie Hannett in Harrietshire for KMTV.
So, Simon, according to Bedfont there, the weakening of the value of the pound is helping them to export more. Yes. They're thinking about bringing in production, manufacturing over to the UK. What's not to like about the present situation?
Well, I suppose it's great news to hear of a manufacturing company doing well, but they, like a lot of manufacturing companies, are going to have to basically adjust to the new reality. And that's the thing which people have got to sort of get to grips with. After being a period of great stability, really, we're entering a period of instability and uncertainty. And so in terms of the price impetus to export, that's very interesting. I look forward to hearing about more companies like Bedfont.
How long do you think that this period, which has clearly been seen as a real boost for exporters, continue? How long can we continue to see exporters, in a situation where they feel like they're, in a really good environment?
Well, I think, do they feel like they're in a good environment at the moment? There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. People are wondering, what Brexit will actually mean in terms of, impediments to trade. But certainly what you can say is that while the UK currency is lower than it otherwise has been, then there's an enormous incentive for people to sell overseas. And that's interesting and exciting, I think.
Andrew, if there is, if this is a boom time for firms which are selling abroad, why are we not seeing more companies taking that step and marketing their products to foreign countries and indeed selling more products abroad?
Sure, Chris. Well, I think we are seeing more companies looking abroad, and Bedfont Scientific's a great example of innovative businesses, really with real aspirations to look not just within the EU but worldwide in terms of where their products have currency. And what we're seeing at the Department for International Trade are businesses who, with the events that are taking place, people are really asking questions about international trade, and they're really seeking advice and support as to who they can talk to, where they can develop their markets, and really what the next steps would be. And those are the services that Department for International Trade provide for Kent-based businesses.
But are there things at the moment which are stopping some companies from selling goods abroad that might want to, if those certain barriers weren't in the way?
Sure. Well, certain businesses really maybe don't have either the aspiration or the collateral or indeed the product or the intellectual property that is applicable for exporting. And by exporting, this is really international trade in its widest sense. It's products, it's services, it's product which maybe doesn't even land on UK shores. So it's a complicated question. I think the businesses that do have the aspiration, that do have the capability, that there's actually a lot of support out there that we can help them with. And we're very keen to engage with those organisations who are actually new to exporting. So not just the ones with a strong track record, people like Bedfont, but with those who think they might have some aspiration, but haven't really done that next stage of due diligence. And again, we can help with that.
It is an additional step, isn't it, an export?
That's
it's
right.
Quite easy to sell internally, but to export, you've got to take an extra leap of faith. And it takes a little bit of bravery to get over that.
Sure. And some businesses are proactive exporters. They have an export strategy. They have a plan in place. And others really either just haven't made that step, and hopefully the current benefit in the currency exchange will stimulate them to do that, or they are simply reactive exporters who have a website, who maybe have an e-commerce functionality on that website, and they've just started to get inquiries overseas. So we'd like to take people along that journey from not thinking that export is something that would work for them, through to the reactive and then hopefully to the proactive exporting, and to hold their hand on that process.
Well, Simon, the businesses that you come across, do you find that there are some common issues that they face when they're thinking of taking that first step, or indeed growing when they've already taken that step?
Yeah, it is very much one of the sort of phases of a business development. And export is that additional step. You've taken all the, let's say, the low-hanging fruit, the easy trades that you can make with the UK, and you've got to put more effort in to speak languages from other countries, and to basically get to grips with the distance aspect of exporting.
Yeah. Given Kent's proximity to the continent, you'd think that Kent would be seen as a real mecca for exporting, but I do get the feeling that maybe Kent doesn't punch quite to the weight that perhaps it should do. And do you think there is any particular reason why Kent isn't taking advantage of its geographic proximity to Europe particularly?
Well, it's certainly true that it's as quick to get to Paris as it is to get to Manchester from Kent. I think that although our advice normally would be to, exactly as Simon has said, to take the low-hanging fruit and to look at markets which are easy to penetrate, where there is stronger relationships, if you like, between the UK and that country, then do the easy things first. The next stage is, of course, to look at those more ambitious markets, those really high growth markets, be it India, be it China, and to start to launch your capability into those markets. And I think Kent businesses are actually very good at that. Certain food and drink businesses have done it particularly well, engineering businesses, logistics businesses. These are all strengths that the Kent business community have. And again, I think it's potentially people sort of hide their light under a bushel, and they don't really go out and tell people exactly what they're doing as much as maybe we would like, or indeed come to us and ask for that help, which is freely given.
Sure. Very, very, very briefly, I just want a quick answer. It's very well known that the UK has a trade deficit. We import more than we export. Why is that such a big problem? Why are we so keen to address that as a nation?
I think it comes down to balance of trade, macroeconomics. Basically, it's about earning your way in life, and if you want to earn your way in life, you've got to sell things as well as consume things.
Sure. Okay, gents, thanks very much for that. Now we're going to take a look at the value of the pound. A raft of huge political events have had a large impact on its strength in recent times, not least the apparently protectionist policies of a certain US President Donald Trump. Our reporter Duarte Diaz takes a look at the events which have damaged and boosted the UK's currency over the last year.
Every day, millions of transactions take place across the UK, so it's easy to lose sight of how fragile a currency can be. Lately, the pound has taken quite a few hits. The value of a currency is usually assessed by comparing it to the US dollar, and it's normal for that value to go up and down every single day. However, the last 12 months have been particularly hard for the pound because of some events in politics. Let's take a closer look. On February 20th, David Cameron announced that there would be a referendum on the UK's membership of the European Union, which caused the pound to decrease in value. Later on, after the tragic death of Labour MP Joe Cox on the 16th of June, campaigning was paused and some polls even suggested Brexit had lost support, which caused the value of the pound to increase. But on the day after Britain voted to leave the EU, the economic uncertainty drove the value of the pound to a 31-year low. After only a slight recovery, it fell once again in October when the new Prime Minister Theresa May announced that Brexit negotiations would start in March 2017. Even now in January, as we approach 1 year since the EU referendum was first announced, the value of the sterling still hasn't fully recovered. On January 9th, Theresa May said the UK would look for a hard Brexit, and a few days later in her speech, she said she would be prepared to lead the single market in order to control our borders. This caused the value of the pound to fall again. But it's not just British politics that affect our currency. Donald Trump's inauguration speech across the Atlantic brought down the pound, as did the Supreme Court's ruling on the Article 50 on the 24th of January. And yet, a devalued pound may not be all doom and gloom. Dr. Anthony Savagar explained how the British economy could benefit from it.
One of the factors that's helped it to do well is the depreciation in the pound, because what that means is that pounds have become cheaper for foreign people, so you can buy more pounds with foreign currency. Now I think what that means if you're a business, that means that you're probably going to have a spike in your exports. So you begin exporting more money comes into the United Kingdom, which buoys the UK.
Yet, in the current market environment, uncertainty is widespread. Who knows how the pound will be affected in the coming months? Duarte Diaz reporting for KMTV.
So Andrew, in this programme we've heard many reasons why the weakness of the pound has been a boost for exporters. What companies suffer from the weakness of the pound?
Sure. Well, the relative devaluation of the pound, something like 15% or so, has been a real boon to exporters, especially ones that are producing or finding their raw material within the UK. Obviously, the downside is as Bedfont have noticed, where they are essentially importing some of the raw materials or some of the components. Then again, obviously, they're now bearing a higher cost for those, which has to be passed on to potential purchasers overseas. So it's a complicated business. Many businesses, as I've mentioned, will be involved in international trade, are providing products that don't even land in the UK. So there's a juggling act to be done. I think broadly it has been very beneficial, and we'd like to encourage businesses to take hold of this windfall, this opportunity, and start building those relationships with overseas partners, so that should the movement start to go the other way, then that relationship is there, the quality of the product is there, and the service, and that should take them through any minor fluctuations in currency.
Sure. Simon, what if you are a company which is struggling from rises and falls in the value of the pound? What can you do to try and protect yourself?
I suppose there's two answers that spring to mind of that question. In terms of dealing with fluctuations, there are various financial products out there which help people basically reduce risk through volatility. But I suppose the larger question is if it's a long-term rise in your input prices, your business solution has got to be to look pretty carefully at your own business model, your own results, and make sure that your margin is still there. You've got to basically pass it on, and this is why inflation brings the spectre of deflation brings the spectre of inflation, because basically we were looking at long-term price increases for the things that we import.
I mean, something that we've seen a lot, particularly in recent times, is how politicians say something and then all of a sudden there's a massive change. I mean, we saw Theresa May's speech, heavily leaked Brexit speech a couple of weeks ago, saw the value of the pound fall, but then when she gave the speech it shot up because they sort of already got rid of the most of it. I mean, should politicians be more careful of the things that they say?
I think not, to be honest. I think we have politicians to basically be honest with us. So I wouldn't be looking to be having the exchange rate managed through political speeches. I think the effects that you've mentioned, they're generally short term and they're generally outweighed by the longer term impacts or the longer term effects on currency. So Brexit and the threat of Brexit has a major effect on currency, and speeches will have a noticeable effect, but it'll be small and short-lived.
Sure. I mean, Andrew, in your line of work, advising companies on international trade, is it really, really valuable for you for the value of the pound to stay at the level that it's in? Is it not in your interest for it to rise at all?
Well, it certainly is a short-term benefit. I think, as Simon says, it's about understanding where the organisation adds value. Markets are dynamic; they will move, they will change. Whether it's a politician's comment or whether it's a longer-term change in relative currency. And organisations need to be robust and find ways of managing that risk. That's something which has always been the case. It's not something which has just suddenly happened. And it's about businesses understanding that, managing it, being as cost effective as they can do. And again, if there's a way of changing the model where they can add more value or they can onshore manufacturing, then again, that's all to the good.
Do you think that there is a time limit on this value of the pound? Do you think that we're coming up to some kind of event that could see it recover at any time soon?
My view on that's economic analysis, but my view on that is no, not really. We've had a shock. We're in now a new reality, which is a lower value pound than it was before, and the only way for the pound to now recover is through trade. And so, as these things happen, in terms of as we do more trade with our overseas partners, as we make more trade deals, as we start to get used to exporting more and more, that will of itself attract foreign currency into the UK, and that's how you'll see the pound recover.
Is there a perception that only companies that do export, that are generally large enough to be able to export, they're the only ones that can lobby government about policies that might be helpful to them? Is there a view at all that maybe firms that aren't maybe in that picture are kind of left out of this and left to deal with the brunt of the costs of rising imports and whatnot?
Okay, I suppose smaller companies don't have, let's say, direct access to ministers, whereas large companies do. However, smaller companies can band together through their various trade organisations, the CBI being a fantastic example, and make sure that their voice is heard. So certainly, as some of the smaller family-owned businesses that I deal with in Kent, they don't feel disenfranchised in that way, and they're perfectly able to make their voices heard, I can tell you.
Is this a false worry? I mean, presumably good businesses with a good product that are innovative, that are making something that people want, are going to do well. So are we over-egging the significance of the rises and falls in the value of sterling? Is it something that we really have to worry about? Briefly.
Well, I think it's a short-term boom. I think it's a great opportunity for organisations now. But as you say, you're absolutely right. It's a long-term game. Businesses are and should be in export for the long term. It's not a dash and grab. So we encourage them to have long-term export plans, a long-term export strategy, and this is simply part of the mix that they should consider.
Simon, briefly on that.
I suppose it is a long-term game. I think what we are witnessing is, let's say, a reaction of fear to uncertainty. But when people get used to it, they'll find that life carries on just the same, and people will be able to trade through this.
That's great. Thank you very much, gents. That's it for the latest edition of Chris & Co, our show looking at the issues affecting business in Kent. You can keep up to date with all the county's latest business news at kentbusiness.co.uk. But for now, that's it. Thanks very much. Goodbye.